Alright guys, BLM here back with a new video, and in this video we're wrapping up my series of top 10 character videos for Big Brother US, where, again, in the past I've done a pre-jury character video and a one-time character video, where here we're finally getting around to just declaring my top 10 characters of all time for Big Brother US. So again, this will literally include everybody, again, not just people that were booted early on, not just people that have only played once, again, this will now finally include players that have played multiple times, and with that straight up in the honorable mentions here, I'm really only going to mention the people that have played multiple times that we haven't been able to talk about. I am looking at this as, again, a sequel video to those previous two videos, where if you want to hear me talk about, again, characters that were booted in the pre-merge that did not make it on, or people that were one-time players that didn't make it on, again, watch those videos. I talk about them there. Here will be primarily focusing on, again, the people that did make the top 10, along with the people that have played multiple times that I haven't been able to talk about yet. And with that, jump into the honorable mentions, people that I have not talked about yet. In chronological order, first up, we have Boogie. And again, Boogie is someone that I did consider. I mean, Boogie, I think, is someone that obviously gets a lot of hate, and rightfully so, for like how he acts as a person. But I do think, as a TV presence on the show, I do think he brought a lot of entertainment there. Now, again, I think what he brought, Will essentially did better, but I do think Boogie, again, is still entertaining at points. I think his overconfidence is something that is really humorous as well, though, again, he's obviously been a fun character in all three of his seasons, but still a bit tough for him to crack the top 10. I also considered Marcellus. And Marcellus, again, a really funny character, really larger-than-life personality, especially for the time. Again, him feeling like a very unique personality of what you would see on reality TV, and him having this really over-the-top energy, and mixing that in the fact that, again, he ends up being very iconic for not using the veto on himself. Again, I think there's a lot to like over the course of BB3. And when he comes back for BB7, he's also entertaining there. Not as much, but he still has a similar personality, just not as integral to the season as a whole. But again, I still like Marcellus. I think he's still a fun character. So one that, again, just did not crack the top 10. Also considered Allison, who was a really incredible character over the course of BB4, and her being this like first like seductress of the show, her like trying to hook up with people as a way to get close to them, while also along with that gave some really great confessionals, some mean-spirited confessionals for sure, but again, some really great one-liners here and there. And then she comes back for BB7, where while she has a short run, it's still a fun run there. I mean, she kind of blows up her game almost instantly, even though, again, she didn't really have a shot to begin with, but still, I mean, there's a lot of fun to be had from Allison. I did very much consider her. I actually think she's relatively close to making the cut. Really, I think she's one of those people fighting for the number 10 slot here, but at the end of the day, she did not end up making it on. Also, similar thing for Diane Henry from BB5, who is another one that I think is also a really great character. One that was, again, very open to confrontations. In BB5, we see her get into fights with Jason Scott. We also see her have some really fun confessionals. We have her, like, feud with the twins. And, you know, again, I think there's a lot to like there from Diane. Though I think her reappearing on BB7 didn't really bring that much to the table there. I don't think she really brought that much entertainment to her. Realistically, I think Allison is someone that was closer to making a list than Diane, though she was also someone that, again, was definitely in contention here. I also considered Nokomis, who, again, was a very unique character for the time, and definitely had her moments. I mean, her meltdown right before her eviction is something to definitely call out there, but realistically, at the end of the day, I did feel like it was also a bit tough to squeeze her in, where realistically, I think Allison and Diane are better characters for me personally than someone like Nokomis, especially because she didn't really bring much to the table on All-Stars either, and again, I always looked at Diane as the better character than Nokomis, even on BB5, so again, she wasn't that close to making it on, but I at least wanted to mention her here. Now for BB6, I did consider James Ryan, where, again, another one that wasn't that close to making the list, but at least is, again, a notable character, played 2 times, and him having this, like, reputation as the veto king his first time around, and him, like, sucking up to the two sides was kind of interesting. Also, BB7, I think the most notable character moment for me is, again, him being very petulant over the voodoo doll veto competition, where he claims that she injured him, which is all funny as well. But realistically, again, James, fine character, but not enough to be in the top 10. Also, I considered Howie, who Howie is more of a larger-than-life character, one that I do think is hamming it up for a show, but still really explosive personality. Again, there are some questionable things about Howie, especially, again, his treatment of women, but still, I do think he led to some fun moments. I mean, him talking about April's dog is funny, him just openly antagonizing people after the Kairouz eviction. After the case, their back door is humorous. Again, some of his antics on All-Stars, even though, again, some of them got a bit much, but also his, like, exit from All-Stars, where he calls Boogie a little punk. again, I think there's some fun stuff to be had there from Howie. But again, there's also some not great stuff from Howie. Again, his treatment of like Chicken George at the jury house was very strange. And again, I think at the end of the day, he's kind of a mixed bag where I did have him in contention, but did not really come that close to the top 10. From BB8, I did consider Evil Dick. Now, obviously, Evil Dick is a very icky presence as well, to where I think that's something that definitely would harm him on a ranking like this, but he still provide for a lot of entertainment on the show. Again, him calling people out constantly, him banging pots and pans to mess with people before the veto comp, him having this more sympathetic side through his relationship with Danielle, that again, post-show, it doesn't really mean anything, but at least in terms of the core story of the season, I think there is stuff to like from Dick, and in general, I think Dick is someone that, if we're ranking character arcs across the season, I think he's probably up there for winning trajectories in a season. I think Dick is probably up there with his storyline with Danielle being a really interesting one, but realistically, again, I think he's just a bit too icky and just not particularly likable, to where it's tough to make him into the top 10 for me. And also with that, we're going to also consider Danielle, and Danielle is someone that I do really like, a really fun personality, and was willing to get into confrontations, though wasn't particularly likable on BB8 in particular. I mean, I did feel like she came off like very young on that season, and didn't handle certain situations particularly well beyond that. But I think she really does pop in BB13, where, again, she kind of blows up her own game. But after that, she's this fun, rural underdog figure. Again, we see her feud with Rachel, which is really interesting on the show. Oh, to be fair, I think I would give more of the credit to Rachel and all that. But still, I mean, really fun personality there. And then we saw her back for 22, where she was fine. Probably her best gameplay season, but probably her worst character season. Where, again, I think she's kind of a mixed bag throughout her career. I think there are moments where she's really incredible, like BB13. There's also moments where, again, she's not the most riveting TV, like 22, and even 8's a little bit up in the air. I like Danny Donato, but did not obviously crack the top 10. Moving on to BB10, I did consider Keisha, and Keisha's someone that, again, was very much hovering on that line as well of almost making it in the top 10. However, Keisha, I decided to leave her off, mainly because, again, like, she obviously had an incredible run on BB10. Again, her having the Keisha's birthday moment is something that is obviously very iconic, though even then, even within that, I would not even necessarily say that Keisha is the best character within that moment. Though still, again, very confrontational, gets to a lot of fights, obviously incredible personality, though obviously didn't bring much to 22, though couldn't really bring much to 22. There again, I think she's good. I think it was just not enough to be top 10, where I think, again, even in comparison to someone like an Allison, I think Allison was a bit closer. Also with BB10, I would consider Jase, and Jesse's someone that, again, a really fun villain for the show, and having this like instant feud with Rennie in week 1 of BB10, which was interesting. Him obviously being in the center of the Keisha's birthday incident, which is also something to give him a lot of credit for. But then beyond that, he comes back for BB11, where he has an interesting run there as well. Again, another one negatively tinted from a character point of view, but still, again, I think as a whole, he becomes a really interesting character on both of his seasons, though not quite enough to be top 10. Also, I considered Enzo from BB12, which, again, I thought Enzo was a fun character. I know obviously people like the shit on Enzo, and again, rightfully so for certain things, but I think as a character, I thought he always brought a fun energy to the show, had some funny liners here and there, had some funny stories to tell on the live feeds that were humorous, but again, at the end of the day, I did feel like it was tough to crack him in the top 10. Also, I consider Frank from BB14, simply because, again, I loved Frank at the time. I was a big Frank fan during BB14, and he has this really great underdog run there. Also got into confrontations. Again, his fight with Willie is one of my all-time favorites. And beyond that, also had like a fight with Ian that was really great towards the end of his season. And I think there's a lot to like from Frank on 14, even though I think when you're looking at it from a feats perspective, he's not the most likable in the world. But really, his 18 performance is kind of where, again, it's definitely a bit of a negative. Obviously, his entire feud with Devon kind of starts due to like some icky reasons. Now, I'll say I do think there was some entertainment to be had there in the sense that he did get into fights with Devon, with Tiffany. That was interesting. He also like fights really hard to have Tiffany stay, which was kind of funny that he's at that point trying to keep around one of his biggest enemies. But really, I do feel like at the end of the day, it's a little bit tough to justify him being in the top 10, with, again, there definitely being some negativity within all that, to where, again, did not make it top 10. Also, I consider Nicole Franzel, and Nicole, I thought, was someone that was fine on BB16. Obviously, again, I think she gets overshadowed by so many other people around her, but again, was a likable enough presence at least. On 18, though, I think is where she really starts to pop as this more villainous figure, but really for me, I feel like the peak of that is BB22, where I feel like that is the point where, even though I don't know how much she really like owns it, but I think in 22 is kind of the point where it does actually transition to her actually being a good character. Again, the entire situation revolving around Ian's vote off, and her like fake crying in the DR is funny, her eviction is probably one of the best moments of the season. Also has the feud with Janelle, which is interesting. Where again, she has a lot of stuff by the end of her career. I do think still her career is, again, not really as character focused until the tail end of it for me, to where, well, again, there's some decent stuff in 18 revolving around like her feud with Devon, and in 16, again, she was just a largely affable presence. For me, it's not enough to be top 10. Also, I did consider Devon, and Devon's another one of these people that for me was fighting for a spot in the top 10. I feel like Devon, again, is one of the best confessionalists in the history of the show, really great in the DR. Obviously ends up being in a lot of conflicts across all of her seasons, getting the fights here and there. But I think the reason why Devon for me doesn't crack top 10 is that in comparison to at least the person that's at number 10, I think that person has a bit more longevity on the show. Probably has more like individual iconic character moments, where I feel like with Devon, I kind of struggle to think of her iconic moments. I mean, obviously there's these iconic gifts that come from her, and her like leaving the house in BB17, or pretending to be shocked. Like there are definitely these memes that come from her, but I don't know if they're necessarily these great individual character moments. So again, I think she's very confrontational, someone that is a fun character on the show for sure, but I just think in terms of top 10, kind of barely misses out on the list for me. And the final consideration, I guess I'm going to say, is Tyler. Now, Tyler's someone that, again, was not really that close to being in the top 10, but I do think Tyler is someone that is a bit understated as a character, simply because, like, he is a character that is good as the straight man. He is the person that is this good reactionary figure to all the wacky characters around him, and I think he fulfilled that role on BB20 pretty well, where, again, he has the likes of Jase, he has the likes of Sam, he has the likes of Caitlyn, and him being able to react to all of the insane things his allies are doing is kind of humorous at points. Now, again, at the end of the day, he's not really that close to being in the top 10, and I think his likability as a character on BB20 in particular is very much reliant on who is around him, where I think, and we saw him in like Challenge USA, where he's not that entertaining, and I think it's because he doesn't have that supporting cast to really back him, to where, again, I think that's kind of the spot he's in, where I think he can be good if he has good people around him, but that's very circumstantial, to where, again, at the end of the day, I did not put him in the top 10. But with that, we're on to the top 10, which the majority of this top 10 does end up being players that have played multiple times. Again, 7 of the 10 players that we'll be talking about here are players that I have not talked about in previous videos. But again, there will be some reoccurring people that we'll get to. But let's start off at number 10. Number 10 character of all time for me is a reoccurring player, the most reoccurring player of all time, and that is obviously Janelle. And again, Janelle is someone that, again, was fighting for this final spot for me with the likes of an Allison, the likes of Devon, the likes of a Diane, Danny Donato. Yeah, again, I decided to give the slot to Janelle just because Janelle has so many more iconic moments, and her entire run on BB6 is just so ripe with incredible character moments, from her bye-bye bitches, her you're a whore, you sleep with older men, in her fight with Bo, her give me that key bitch. Again, there's so many great one-liners from Janelle in this season that are still iconic in the Survivor lexicon. Beyond that, again, she was still this confrontational figure, this person who got on a lot of people's nerves, with the friendship in particular, seemingly being jealous of her the entire time, and that kind of run continues in BB7 as well, where, again, she also has this similar sort of conflicts with people like Allison, people like Diane, that don't like Janelle right off the bat, and obviously has this really iconic comp run on that season, making her such a rootable underdog presence there, and obviously in BB's 14 and 22, she has a much shorter run on both of those seasons, but even then, has some moments for sure. I mean, in BB 14, again, she's at least willing to call out Willie, that's something. BB 22, again, we have her entire feud with Nicole, which is really great. So again, I think she at least brings something to the table on the seasons that she has relatively short runs in, while also her BB 6 and 7 runs are just purely iconic, to where, again, I think she does have these better individual character moments than a lot of the people that we would mention previously. Really, just her BB6 run alone is probably filled with more iconic moments than any of the people we've talked about so far. And all again, I think at the end of the day, Janelle is not necessarily my personal favorite character in the world. I do think her resume of just having so many iconic character moments is what leaves her here at number 10. Now, number 9, we're moving on to the only pre-merger that made it onto the top 10. It is a 2-time pre-merger. That person is Jase Wirey. And again, Jase is someone that I've always really loved as a TV character. I feel like Jase is someone that really popped on BB5. I feel like his appearance on BB5 is far the best pre-jury appearance from any specific character, where he was just all over the show, had so many wacky antics and fun character moments, where, again, there definitely are some, again, more icky moments from, and some casual homophobia from him. But in terms of what he brought to the show, again, him playing from the bottom in particular was really interesting to see. Again, him freaking out after winning the veto, him also like begging for votes on his way out. Again, I've always loved his reaction to the Scott eviction, with him just saying alone as he's working out, ultimate betrayal, ultimate, and him proceeding to pick a fight with Adria as Natalie ends up entering the house. We also have his like awkward relationship with Holly, and again, I just think as a whole, his B5 run's very iconic for me. BB7, not as much, but still provides some moments here and there, particularly in his exit. He gets into some fights there. He, in general, ends up being a really entertaining presence to me, where I've always loved Jase. I think he is an all-time great character. Despite the fact he never even made it to the jury phase of the game, I still think he is a truly iconic Big Brother character, which is why he's here number 9. Now, number 8, we're moving on to one of the 2 one-time players to make it onto the top 10. We're keeping in line with that list. At number 8, I do have Russell from BB11. Again, I just really look at Russell as just such an all-time great character. Again, just the amount of drama that he brings on BB11 is almost unprecedented. Again, he gets into so many iconic fights in that season. Again, starting it off, getting in a fight with Jeff over Technotronics. We have him fighting with Shima, which leads to them getting in each other's faces. We have his fight with Jordan, where Jordan, of all people, chest bumps him, which is pretty insane. And outside of that, again, had some smaller fights. Again, his fight with Jeff on his way out, his fight with Jesse during Jesse's final week, was him tormenting Ronnie, which was really interesting as well. Where, again, I think to me, he is essentially a better version of like someone like an Evil Dick from a character perspective, where Evil Dick, again, does these more antagonistic things, but gets definitely into the more icky side of things. I don't think Russell really ever transitions over into the icky side. In fact, they like called out Jeff for his homophobia. He called out people's icky comments at points. So again, I do think Russell is someone that I think is an understated character. I do think he is an all-time great, especially one-time character, but I think even amongst the Big Brother lexicon, I do think he is someone that sadly is going to be forgotten about because he obviously comes from a relatively early on season, never got to play again. No, I think if you watch all the moments he was a part of in BB11, it is kind of insane how much conflict he was a part of in just that one singular season, where again, for me, that is enough to put him here at number 8. Now, number 7, we're moving on to really the heavy hitters at this point. Now we're getting to some all-time Big Brother legends. We're starting off at number 7 with the person that I declared is the best player of all time. We got Dan Gheesling. And again, Dan is a really fun character, though I think in a bit of a different way than some of the like really elite characters are, where Dan is a fun character as, again, more of this like straight man of the cast a lot of the time. Again, his reactions to a lot of the more wacky people is definitely an entertaining aspect of him, where in that way he's, again, similar to someone like a Tyler, though obviously I think he excels Tyler through his kind of insane strategies he executes at points. Again, the fact that he really knows how to sell it to the audience of the plans that he's doing, where, again, even when he's on the bottom and throwing the veto, I think the way that he sells that in the DR is something that is very captivating. And beyond that, obviously, he has like things like replacement nominee roulette. He just has his open backstab of Ollie. We have his like subtle throwing Memphis under the bus to Keisha. We have his feud with Jerry. Also, when he's America's player, he ends up providing some fun moments in terms of him having to hug Jesse. Where, again, I think he brings a lot to the table. BB10, and then on BB14, again, it's more of the same, but still, definitely some fun gameplay moments there, and him facing off against adversity. Obviously, we got Dan's funeral, which, again, I don't know how much of that you quantify as a character moment, but still, I think in general, obviously, Dan is a fun character. I think, again, amongst the all-time greats, he is a bit of a lesser character in my point of view, in the sense that he is, again, more of this like straight man figure, which more so bounces off the people around him, to where, while again, I think he's a really strong narrator, which definitely helps his position here as well. I do think everyone that we're going to be talking about beyond this are people that I would have a lot more faith in being really entertaining on like any given season, where I think that like Dan is probably one that, again, depends on the cast. So, because that left behind Dan here at number 7. Now, number 6, moving on to a character that realistically feels like a bit more in line with that of a Jase Wirey, probably in line with some of the people that we've talked about in previous lists, like a Zach Rant, a Tucker, as, again, these more wacky characters, really hamming it up for the show. But this person was on 2 seasons and provided entertainment on both of them, even though less likable on one of them than the other. At number 6, we do have Paul. And Paul, again, I think is a really great showman on the show. I think there's someone that brings a lot of entertainment through how much they really ham it up for the show. The constant saying your boy, constantly saying friendship, constantly carrying Pablo around, and doing a lot of these things that clearly is trying to make them an entertaining presence on the show. I think they definitely know what they're doing in terms of trying to make themselves a rootable figure on the show. But again, I do think it's effective. I do think Paul comes off as a really entertaining presence across BB18, especially considering their overall trajectory in the game as well, where, again, they're really in and out of the majority constantly throughout that season, and it does add to the appeal of Paul as a character and the fact that they have this inconsistent run, but one that had them playing from both the top and the bottom. And again, when they're on the bottom, they are a really fun underdog, and they do come up with these pretty elaborate schemes to try to save themselves. Always remember the second Victor eviction week where Victor were faking fights to try to get Victor to stay. In general, I think Paul's 18 run is very fun to watch. Their 19 run, and a little bit questionable in terms of, again, definitely a lot of ickiness surrounding the treatment of Jase and Cody, and obviously it was a massive steamroll, but I do think Paul still provides a lot of entertainment even on that season. I think Paul still gets into some targets here and there. Obviously, we got even more elaborate plans. Again, so many fake fights across the season. And also, again, the moment of getting everybody to throw the HOH to Christmas and how they narrate that in the episode's also really fun TV. And also, again, seeing Paul have a downfall again was also really interesting. Or just having their slow realization they're about to lose the game again is just so tragic, but also really interesting to watch. And I think Paul is an incredible character, a really great showman for the show. I think you could definitely qualm with, again, the lack of likability on 19. I think they were probably the second most entertaining aspect of that season, which is why Paul lands here at number 6. On number 5, moving on from the second most entertaining aspect of the season to the most entertaining aspect of the season, we got Josh Martinez. And Josh ends up being the last one-time player to make the list, and even then, again, questionable considering reindeer games. But still, Josh, incredible character on his winning season. Again, this very emotional goofball that somehow pulls out the win, and him getting constant confrontations with the likes of Jess and Cody, him getting the fights with Mark, all that was really fun to see. And him constantly being emotional across the game, him also picking fights with people and being willing to be this decoy in the game is all really interesting. And again, just in general, I think Josh is obviously an iconic character. I know people don't like him, but again, I think it's undeniable to say that he at least brings a lot to whatever show he's on, whether you like that or not. I still think he is up there with the greatest reality TV characters of all time, which is why I do have him here at number 5. At number 4, again, now getting to the top tier people. I think here we're moving on to probably the greatest showman in the history of the show, and that's actually the top guy on this entire list. At number 4, we have Will Kirby. And again, Will is an incredible character on the show in the sense that he really knows how to sell his game to the audience. And I think that's something that has always been a massive strong suit for him, is that he's someone that, while again, I definitely qualm with how he actually plays the game, he at least is able to portray it in a very interesting way. He at least is able to narrate the season in a way that makes him look a lot better than what he actually is. Again, his entire thing on BB2 about getting the entire cast to fast is, again, a fun moment on the show, even though the reality is that that wasn't real and no one actually did it. But again, he's able to sell it well on the show. And I think it's very apt that he's probably the winner that benefited the most from how he was presented on the show, where I do think a lot of that did play into the jury feeling a lot more favorably about him by the time they vote for him, even though, to be fair, he was against Nicole, wouldn't have mattered anyway. But it's that Will really knows how to ham up this role of being this villainous figure, this person that admits to the fact that he's going to lie and backstab, and if people don't realize it, then it's their fault. So, again, I think it also leads to, again, a fun character moment in his final speech, to where he talks about how if people aren't okay with what happened on the season, they're not okay with reality. Again, it's a funny moment, but also terrible gameplay. But still, I think Will, really fun character on BB2, and then he is able to replicate that on BB7. Again, able to take what he did on BB2 and really expand upon it. Again, now having these Chilltown DRs with Mike Boogie that were all really humorous. Him talking about being all circuitry and wires, and again, really playing up the villainous role even more. And I do think Will is someone that is really able to really ham up his ability in the game in a way that convinces people that he is even better in the game than what he actually is. Where I think that is definitely something to bolster him as a character. The fact that he is so good as a narrator and so entertaining of a presence that it convinces people that translates into gameplay. To where, and I think Will, as much as I do criticize his gameplay whenever I do assess his gameplay, I do think from a pure character front, he is clearly amongst the best. I think he is one of the best showmen this show has ever had, one of the best narrators, and also someone that, again, knows he's making good TV. Again, his "I hate you all" speech being pretty much entirely for TV. Him being very aware of the fact that he's making a TV show, which I do think adds to his overall entertainment value here, putting him here at number 4. Now number 3, and again, the remaining 3 are all women, all very close to each other in my mind. I think all 3 of these have an argument for being the best character of all time. However, at number 3, I am going to go with Danielle Reyes. And again, Danielle Reyes, incredible character, both on BB3 and BB7. I do think when we're comparing the top 3 here, I think she probably has the weakest second season of the 3 from a character front, where, again, Danielle Reyes, BB3, all-time great character. possibly in the conversation for best individual run on a season from a character front. Again, she is incredible in the DR. Such a raw energy in her DR that makes her such a riveting character there, to where, again, we have her just spilling out these one-liners, openly mocking her other players, playing up this villainous role, which, again, ended up harming her overall gameplay, but still, really fun presence in those moments. Also providing some good moments in the house itself. Her fight with Lori over Jerry not washing his hands is still such an iconic moment. And her overall trajectory on the season is obviously iconic as well. Where, again, I do think Danielle's BB3 run is really incredible. I think her BB7 run's okay. And again, I think in BB7, she's not as massive of a personality. I think she kind of falls behind a bit to the likes of Janelle, Will, Boogie. Or, again, she definitely has her moments here and there, but I do think she becomes a much more secondary character on her second season that, again, kind of keeps her out of the top two for me. So, again, I do think the top two have 2 seasons of both being really iconic characters, where I feel like Danielle really has one. Now, again, if we were including reindeer games in all this, I think reindeer games bolsters Danielle's character, but to be fair, bolsters someone else that's higher on the list as well. I think just no matter what, Danielle feels about right here at number 3. Again, I think you debate the next person that we'll be talking about as someone that's on equal footing, but I do think with her All-Stars run just being kind of okay, I think it's enough to put Danielle here at number 3. At number 2, it's kind of insane that the top 2 here actually both come from the same starting season, with both of them just being all-time great reality TV personalities. However, at number 2, the one I'm going to go with is Britney Haynes. And again, Britney is incredible TV, and is someone that, again, one of the best confessionalists in the history of the show. So many iconic DRs. And it's kind of the perfect epitome of the straight man figure. This person who, again, is great at reacting to all the crazy things that are happening around her, but also is an incredible character even in her own right. I mean, even in her, feud with Rachel, we have the moment of her putting on the extensions and getting caught, which is a funny moment. We have her, mouthing in the background while being tied to Brendan, and Brendan speaking, and her just being annoyed while being there. And then even moving on to BB14, she still has great content there. Again, still incredible in the DR. Obviously has her goodbye message, the Boogie, which is probably an all-time great one there. And if we're including reindeer games, I think reindeer games does nothing but improve her legacy, where she really has shown that she hasn't lost a step. Where even there, she has her, being mind-blown the fact that Xavier had won Big Brother, and obviously her I hate all of them after winning the Santa Showdown. And again, there's so many great moments even from reindeer games to where, again, not really even taking that in consideration, but really just in general, I feel like Britney has become this evergreen character. I think she really is amongst the best in the history of the show, where I think Danielle's BB3 run might be a tad bit better than Britney's BB12 run. Again, both really incredible. I do think Britney's BB14 run feels a lot more notable to me than Danielle's All-Star run, especially from a character front, to where, again, it's close between the two, though. Again, I think if we're adding in reindeer games, I think Britney does kind of leap over Danielle even more. And at the end of the day, I did feel like Britney was the better character here, though she's here at number 2. Now, number 1, the best character in Big Brother history, was, again, a bit of a step above the previous 2. I think this is a person that had 2 really insane runs on the show, 2 all-time classic Big Brother character runs. That person is Rachel Reilly. And really, through thinking it through, it probably isn't even that close. I mean, I think the qualm would be obviously the fact that Rachel only ends up making it halfway through BB12. But even then, BB12 is probably her most iconic character run. Where obviously through that, we have the Floors Grab a Life Fest. We have her being this underdog figure alongside Brendan. We getting on everybody's nerves and being constantly mocked in the confessional. And she probably ends up being one of the biggest social pariahs in the history of Big Brother over the course of that season. Where, again, I think she's incredible on BB12. Comes up for BB13 and ends up being equally as good. And still very confrontational there. Again, getting into fights with Jeff and her crying in the bushes. We see her starting this feud with Danielle and her trying to sit in Danielle's lap during the ceremony is funny. Her still grating on people, still getting on people's nerves. Again, considering Rachel has 2 runs of her being a really iconic Big Brother character, again, playing from the bottom a lot of her run and her providing so many character moments throughout all of it, again, it does feel like it's a bit tough to beat. Where really, I feel like both of Rachel's runs on BB12 are around the same caliber of, again, Britney's BB12 run, Danielle's BB3 run. Yeah, again, I think with both of them, again, their second runs are not as great. But I feel like Rachel's BB13 run is, again, just as good as her 12 run. So considering the fact that she has 2, truly iconic runs on the show that are both up there with the best, individual character seasons for any specific person, I think it's a bit tough to not have Rachel here at number 1. Even though, again, I think at the end of the day, I probably on paper like people like Danielle, Reyes, and Britney a bit more, but I just think Rachel brings so much more across her 2 seasons, so that's why she is here at number 1. But with that, again, that is my top 10 characters for Big Brother US. Again, ending this series of top 10 character videos. Now, down the road, again, I still would like to do more character-related videos. I actually do want to do the character winner ranking, which obviously I've done for Survivor. I would like to do the same thing for Big Brother. I think that would be kind of interesting. Beyond that, I mean, there's also other potential ideas. I know best characters for every letter of the alphabet is also an idea I had in my head for some point down the road. Beyond that, obviously, still just do random Big Brother videos over time, Survivor videos as well. Again, expect the same style of content moving forward. But for now, that is the video. Thank you for watching.